Are you a scaling SaaS founder?
Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those you don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where lifting each other up is our default setting. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. Help B2B SaaS founders like you scale from 7 figures, which is good, to 8 and 9 figures, which is outstanding. Together, we supercharge revenue growth, create premium valuation, and craft a business you're proud of and a life of impact and freedom that you love. Hey, champions, I expected to be coming to you live from Israel this week and for the next 3 weeks. But the plans changed. The last week has been crazy, unbelievable attacks, tragic loss of life, and unthinkable brutality. Pray for those in the region, pray for the hostages to be returned safely, and find ways to support people who have lost family members, homes, businesses. I have friends and colleagues in country and in the region. Over the last week, comparisons have been made to 9/11 or Pearl Harbor here in the States, and I think that's very much on point. I was at Pearl Harbor earlier this year. But multiply the loss of life by 30 just to help wrap your mind around the scale. The population differences, 1,000 there. Imagine like 30,000 here. And then the history of the Holocaust and other things on top of that. Most of you know all book profits go to charity. One of our core values is using business to give back. And for the rest of October and November, at least, they will go to humanitarian relief in Israel specifically. The Israel Emergency Fund, UJA Federation, their website is ujafedny.org. Started in 1939, 99% of every dollar goes to help people, extremely capital efficient, which I really like. So consider doing the same and supporting the Israel Emergency Fund. There's a link in the comments and show notes, and I encourage you to give as well. Well, this was a trip that has been planned. It was originally 2020 and then again in 21. And now we're looking at 2025. Next year's all booked up. So we'll see. And, honestly, I was really kind of bummed about not going again for a lot of reasons. I've been trying to do this for a while. But I think how we deal with disappointment is important, especially as business leaders, so that disappointment doesn't lead to disillusionment. Have you ever done maze puzzles or, maybe a maze in real life? I did a thing where I was in a glass mirror maze. It was a time competition and, dead set on winning and finding the goal, the prize, the elusive cheese. And then I saw it. It was right in front of me. It was so close I could reach out and then smack right into a wall. Setbacks. It's kind of like spices in food. They can either overwhelm your dish or make it unforgettable. And I've experienced hitting those walls in my entrepreneurial journey as well. How about you? Most of you probably don't know an Israeli inventor named Dov Moran, but I promise you that his inventions have affected your life. I know. I'm just blown away at some of the inventions, but most notably, he invented the USB flash drive. Anybody ever use one of those? It's like, how do we ever live without that? Founded a company called M Systems, massive success, and sold to SanDisk a few years later for $1.6 billion. And that was when $1 billion was actually worth something. There weren't, unicorns, all the time. But it was a $1 billion revenue company, sold $1.6 billion. Absolutely amazing. Former employees started over 30 companies. It's incredible. Not unlike PayPal. His next venture was a company called Modu. It was creating the world's smallest cell phone, which is absolutely brilliant. Phones were getting smaller and smaller. We started out with giant bricks and it gets smaller and smaller. And he actually won a Guinness World Record for the lightest cell phone. Amazing, brilliant design. It launched at the same time as the iPhone, which made phones big forever because they have screens now and other things on them. And then the credit crisis, 2008, investment dried up. Big losses, fired 130 people, liquidated patents to Google for $5 million or so. Colossal flop. Big high, big low. Yet he considered this a positive turning point in his career. I mean, that is mind blowing in itself. But he did. Positive turning point. Said it made me stop being afraid of failure. When you don't fail, you fear it. Once it hits big, you are released. He said, this freed me to go wild with ideas. Man, I want to think like that because failure is one of those things that is inevitable on our journey. We're going to have setbacks. So if I want to think like that, let's crack the code on converting those flops into jackpot wins. How about that? Well, first up, I think reframe the game. Turn setbacks into setups. And every time life hands you lemons, consider it a chance to perfect your lemonade recipe. We all go through tough times. We all go through setbacks. We all go through challenges. We all go through problems. They're inevitable. It's part of the journey. The difference is the story that we tell ourselves. What does failure mean? Does it mean that I'm not worthy? I'm not good. I can't do this? Is it the end? Or is it a learning opportunity? Is it the beginning? Is it figuring out a way that doesn't work? Is it the beginning of a new climb up? Reframe the game. Second is armor up. Being resilient isn't a birthright. It's not something that you're just born into and I'm resilient. It's something that takes time. It's armor that is forged through trials. Forging requires heat and pounding. Have you ever watched metal being worked? That doesn't sound fun for that to be happening to be the metal. But each failure adds another piece to your invincible suit. The way is through. So be resilient. Go through those trials. That is the way. And then add that armor up. And lastly is know when to fold. This is something I'm terrible at. But resilience isn't just dogged persistence. It's knowing when to pivot and, dare I say, sometimes even abandon a sinking ship. Surround yourself with wise counsel who can support you through that, can give you advice, can tell you when to hold them, when to fold them. But I think that's an important thing and something I can learn is really, know when to fold them, know when to make those pivots. A pivot is not admitting failure. It's, successfully sidestepping, a front-end collision. So are you using roadblocks as stepping stones to greatness? Let's use setbacks to pave the way for monumental comebacks. If you could benefit from a community to help you turn those setbacks into comebacks, check out our sponsor today, Champion Leadership Group. It is the ultimate resource for SaaS founders and C-suite executives to continue to develop and scale their companies, and never walk alone on the journey. Supercharge revenue by leveraging time-tested SaaS growth principles, toolkits, playbooks, and frameworks designed to help you scale ARR from 7 to 8 to 9 figures. Collaborate with an elite network of SaaS visionaries as we up-level ourselves, our teams, and have some fun along the way. Confidently take that right next step that turns into a quantum leap of profitable growth, premium valuation, and freedom. You can learn more at championleadership.com. Our expert guest last week was Leon Barnard, who leads the design education team at Balsamiq. He is the author of Wireframing for Everyone. We talked about modern UX design, wireframing for everyone. Even me. My big takeaway was how my team can use it to successfully transfer ideas from my head to development, to product teams, to marketing, and other leaders lightning fast. Instead of trying to explain it, we just look at it. And it's very, very easy to do. So, get functional teams and tech teams on the same page. That is absolutely beautiful when that happens. And our founder a week ago was Stacy Chan. Man, what a joy talking to Stacy. She is an award-winning reporter, media expert, turned SaaS founder. She co-founded a generative AI company called 1 Billion Stories, and they launched a flagship product called Videofy.ai, which helps brands and publishers scale video and social media creation. You should check out both of those episodes if you missed either one of those. Great, great stuff there. My guest today is Thomas Knoll. I couldn't have planned this better, talking about resilience and some of the things and feelings over the last week. Thomas, after working at a bunch of startups, he built 5 of his own with 2 exits, a few failures, and thousands of lessons learned. Now he unburdens founders and leaders through yoursecondcall.com. where he helps founders win the mental game while navigating the challenges of creating something from nothing and convincing others to get on the bandwagon. Welcome, Thomas Knoll.
Hey, Thomas, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Well, you told me before about being a community architect at Zappos. Tell me about that and kind of what that journey was like.
Yeah, it might be a funny phrase for some people. I think a lot of people have heard about community managers, community building, community management. I love the phrase community architect. So I'd been working on building online communities since like 1996 when it was like front page and GeoCities and stuff like that. So I've been there a while. Yeah, way back then.
It's been a while, yeah.
A few whiles. It was like Netscape browser, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
AOL for internet. And so I like that whole time, a lot of those kind of metaphors or patterns of like gardening and like it's about pulling out weeds and planting seeds, or this management, right? Like you're going to manage a community, like you're going to control them and make sure that they do the right things, and like none of those ever felt right. Sure. And then I ran, I was having these conversations with people who work in architecture, and I didn't really know anything about it, and like my questions are like, oh, what's it like to like make buildings? And the really great architects had this entirely different perspective. It wasn't I make buildings. It was I use buildings to create space. And so they didn't see it as the building they were making as the thing they were making. The building was just the material for how do we design spaces for people, and the decisions they make around, hard surfaces and very large space or small nooks and crannies, how the light goes in, where the walls are. It was all about how you want the people to feel and interact within those spaces. And so that's what drove the decisions. And you can see it if you think about decisions that are made in a stadium, or decisions made in a library, or decisions made in a school, or, they're all about what are the people supposed to do when they're there. And that's whenever it just hit me that for someone who wants to help create community between the customers or users, end users, buyers, whatever it is, for a brand, for a business, if you want to build communities, the most powerful tools you can use aren't moderation or like getting people to say more stuff or like planting seeds, or, it wasn't that. It's actually what type of space can we create for people that is naturally and inherently going to help them interact and share in the way that the space enables. And then just a little piece of beyond that is just, okay, now like how do you remove bad actors, and like how do you help make sure people feel safe? But that was really what drove it. So that was a lot of the work at all the companies leading up. Zappos was kind of like the peak of my career on the community building path. A lot of the work that we did there, some of it was on the e-commerce side and in different type of customer mindsets or groups, right? Like you have, like you're selling, it's a whole bunch of shoes and other stuff, but kind of most famous for the shoes. And even in there, like there's no such thing as a shoe community. You have a lot of different lifestyles, whether it's the running and marathons and all that type of recreational running, whether it's the surf, skate, snow, ride shop kind of things, whether it's the, tennis, golf, those types of sports, whether it's couture, whether it's outdoor, so like hiking or rock climbing or, kind of technical technical things. Like it's really about a bunch of different lifestyles within that. So that was really the consumer side of things. But then there's also the internal community. So kind of company culture and employees, like what does it look like for employees to feel a sense of community within the place where they work? And we also had a thing called Zappos Insights, which was like a lot of compared to like Disney University, you have all of these other companies that were coming to Zappos and asking like, hey, how do you build culture? How do you do customer service? We'd like to learn that. And so also talking about ways to help all of those companies who are coming to learn from Zappos, how do they actually interact more and share between each other more of the things that they're learning along the way. So it was a whole lot of different things. And so it was a lot of fun because I spent most of my time helping all of these different groups kind of learn those tools of community architecture and how to be mindful about the space that we're creating for the customers or users of those products or services. They all took it to heart and learned it and took over real fast. And I was, my job was done.
I think that's a great picture. It's really creating the space. A lot of times when you think about communities, especially online, the questions are, how do I get more engagement? How do I make people do the thing that I want them to do?
Yeah.
And it's looking at it from the wrong perspective. And I think you just turn that around.
Yeah.
And so how can we do that online? How do we make the community where people want to be involved, they want to participate, they have that freedom to do that?
Yeah, it's what I found was it's a lot of counterintuitive things.
I love that.
A lot of the first impulses, right? Like I want a thing to happen. How can I make that thing happen?
Right.
And often that leads to like I had this talk that I gave at South by Southwest. I don't know, it's probably been 10 years now. But it was like how to ruin your community by being friendly and helpful.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Which sounds very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But the first instinct for a lot of, especially founders, less so at larger companies where they have professionals in this space, but especially for the founders that are leading that at first, they really want to make everything work. And so, let's get a community and let's gather everyone here. And they do what I call the overeager greeter. Like imagine the little bitty lapdog that like runs up to everyone and crawls up on them and starts licking them in the face, and the owner's just like, oh, isn't it cute? And everyone's like, no, this is really annoying.
No, it's not.
I don't like this at all. Get your dog off of me right now. But that's what they do. Someone walks through the door and they just run up. Hi, how's it going? I'm so glad you're here. Will you come join this? There's a thing we do on Tuesdays. Will you join the AMA? Will you write something? Will you write an introduction to yourself 3 seconds after you get in the door and tell everyone who you are, even though you don't know who any of them are yet? Please come, welcome, glad, be here, do more stuff, say more things, right? And like, you're trying to be welcoming, but it destroys community because at best, even if that works, at best, everyone else goes, oh, that's the person who's supposed to greet everyone. And they don't learn
it's not authentic.
We're a community. The community is going to greet people, right? So the solve for that is to still be just as excited and energetic, but instead I run over to someone else and I go, hey, I saw so-and-so just showed up. They're also from New York. Maybe you want to, kind of say hi and, let them know some of the things that are going on around here. Someone else comes through the door. Instinct is go greet them. Instead, pull back, go find someone else in the community. Hey, did you see that so-and-so just showed up? Why don't you say hi? That'd be really cool. And a couple cycle of that, and everyone starts to learn, oh, I can go greet people. The people who are being greeted go, oh, I could do this too whenever someone's, because no one ever learned that like, that's the person that does the greeting. And the other one is similar, but it's, trying to be helpful. And so if the first thing I do is try to solve everyone's problems every time they say something, every time they complain, every time they have a question, if I go jump in and try to solve all their problems, the whole community is, what's supposed to be a community is just this crowd that's learning like, oh, there are certain people from the company who are here to it's like be concierge or something, just like, it's like they're going to answer everything, do everything, lead everything, be in charge of everything. And we're here just to consume this, and we're just calling it a community, but it's just another marketing channel where people could maybe talk to each other.
Yeah, it kills the interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard thing to learn, but as soon as you get it, everything gets simple, and it's also inherently scalable because you don't have to be the one doing everything. If you're just spending your time demonstrating the behavior that is helpful, then everyone can pick up those kind of those roles and behaviors and teach it to everyone else who shows up. So it'll actually scale better.
Oh, that's good. Especially getting the interaction, getting other people involved, and really kind of teaching them, how things work instead of just doing it or trying to force it.
Yeah. It's scary because you realize quickly that you aren't in control. That makes sense? Like,
yes, it does.
Letting go, like letting other people do things, letting other people share their stories, letting anyone start an AMA, letting anyone share their information or ideas or questions. It's like, oh, but now we're not in control of it. It's like, well, if you want community, then you have to realize you're not in control. And so the sooner you start letting go of the control, the better things will go.
So what do you think about building communities on other platforms, whether that be like a Facebook or a LinkedIn versus something external, like a circle or a tribe or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, what I really think about it is similar to how you can't control a true community, right? Like if it is becoming a true community, then you have to have lost control of it because it has to be owned by the community itself. Similarly, this idea of owning a community, I think is flawed. And so the main reason that drives a lot of those platform choices, or whether we are or aren't going to go engage in other communities that are gathering in other places, or like, oh, we're shutting down everything on Facebook because they control it and we don't. Like, if you buy your own space and put people there, like, you still don't control any of it. You may control the data, and that's what you were worried about, but that's not the community piece. And so the underlying question is, if I want to host and sponsor and facilitate community, that means that I will want to go wherever people are, and I will want to be sharing and inviting wherever they are. Now, I may have a space that I do a lot of hosting and creating space for that community to also gather, right? But I'm never going to lock them in to only my space. Like, I want them to be out and about and around all the other places, connecting with people who aren't here yet, right? The only reason to try to sponsor community as a business is to get more customers.
Sure.
So I don't want a little echo chamber where like we lock in all of our customers only talking to our other customers and like discourage them from being anywhere else, everywhere else, that similar people might be gathering. We'd want to encourage that. And so go anywhere. The tools don't really matter. It's whether you're creating a sense of belonging and shared purpose, shared goals, shared stories. And you can do that absolutely anywhere.
Yeah, that's good. And that makes sense because when you started, way back then, there were no tools. A lot of the stuff didn't even exist. And so, having to create that or find a place, to do that. So it's not about the tools, but it's about, I like that it's really creating a place that people want to go, shared values, shared stories, shared experiences.
Yeah. And that's what, people will always find a way to belong.
Yeah.
And so the tools really don't matter. No matter what changes or develops or new things come out, it's just, it's the human piece of it that really matters. Like they're going to find a way I want to find other people like me who care about the stuff that I care about. They're going to seek it out and find it wherever.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you spent a fair amount of time working at startups, and so did that. I mean, some big companies, some that were startups that grew pretty big, and then left that world and started doing startups of your own. Did 5 of those, a couple of exits. Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, it was, so it's while I was at Zappos that other, startup founders started reaching out, asking for, advice or tips or, suggestions. And that was a lot of fun. So was just happy that people wanted to ask me questions. I could feel useful and important, so that felt great. And started doing a lot of that. And when I left Zappos, there were just tools that I wanted for community building. At that time, there was social media products all over the place, and a lot of marketing tools, a lot of how do we send a lot of, one-to-many, mostly, how do we blast our message to more people, a little bit more around and can we interact with them? But it still wasn't easy to help them connect with each other. And so that's how I ended up building some of the first companies, was just there's a thing that needs to exist and I can't find it. I guess you make it then. Now I go how foolish was it to go you just start a company if you want to make something. I didn't know what I was saying. When I was
I want this, so everybody else
start
wants
a company.
Too.
Yeah, let's just do that.
That happens a lot, though. A lot of companies start that way. Everybody wants what I want.
Obviously. At least those, at least they even want the thing that they're building. It's it's even scary, the ones that I'm not a whatever, but I just started a company in this space because I thought there would be money in it.
The worst reason to ever start a company is, I wanted to make money.
Yeah. I have this exit that I want, and so I'm going to start. Right. It should be easy, right?
What's the fastest way to do that? Yeah, I'm going to exit. So, it's going to do this thing.
I want one of those IPO things.
Well, if you read enough TechCrunch, that's the way that's what happens. Is you just build a company, unicorn, there you go, exit.
The end.
Yeah, it's not really like that though.
Not often.
No, I don't think ever. I mean, even there's a lot of stuff missing in the middle in those kinds of stories.
Yeah,
overnight success after 25 years of pushing a rock uphill.
Yeah, and it rolling over.
Right.
Over me 20 times.
So, on your journey, multiple companies. How did you come up with the ideas? Were they all things that you wanted in your business, or something more strategic, or how did you come up with the ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I still have a list of 500 ideas. There's a couple of fun websites out there. One of the ones that we tried to start was basically share your idea to get other people to do it. And, there's a ton of those. Knoll is a fun one right now. But the ideas are everywhere. The only ones that were worth doing to me were the ones that at least I could have this if we built it. Even if it goes nowhere, at least I would still have it for myself. So those are the ones that we started to build. The reality is being able to find other people who cared as much about that thing to go try to build it. That was the real kind of threshold for whether this could ever work. It doesn't matter if I have an idea, if it's a great one, however you want to judge that. But like, if no one else cares, if no one else wants to get on board, like, the story I've heard is like, for founders, it's like your job is to like get a bus, put gas in the bus, and get people on the bus.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's a big piece, is like, other people have to want to get on the bus. And so some of it was joining other people who had ideas, and jumping on their bus and getting going very early on as a co-founder. Sometimes it was getting something far enough along that other people wanted to get on the bus.
So in building companies, getting people on the bus, what are some things that lessons you learned along the way?
How long do we have? Do you want the hard ones or the easy ones?
Yeah, top 5. Let's go hard ones.
Yeah, just
hard lessons are
top
always
5.
good.
Yeah, I mean, what I learned the hard way after a long time, and what led me to like all the work that I do now, is no matter what the vertical, no matter what the business model, no matter what the industry, no matter how many sides there are to the marketplace, no matter, like, beyond any of that is people who are full of complexity.
Yeah.
Have to figure out how to trust each other, how to share vision and energy, how to overcome struggles, complications, roadblocks. And that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
It gets framed in things like business model and go to market, and what are our core values, and what is our hiring strategy, and management. How are we going to lead the team, and how are we going to reach customers, and how are we going to communicate with them, and do we listen to them at all, or are we going to tell them what they need because they don't know what they need? Like, there's a lot of ways we frame all of these things, but underneath all of it, it's still just people trying to find a way to trust each other and communicate in a way that lets us make as much progress as possible in an environment that is a gauntlet of like everything that could go wrong will go wrong. And so it's like one of the hardest arenas to try to do the work that's just hard anyway, because we're human.
It is. One of my favorite books is 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Patrick Lencioni. And I've felt that. I've probably read it 20 times, and because I need reminding on a regular basis. And it's 40 pages, so like you can read it that many times.
But working with a team is difficult. And because you've got all these different personalities and we've got different backgrounds, we have different ways that we see the world. And especially leadership teams, we all think that we're right. I mean, nobody ever says, here's my opinion, but I'm probably wrong. But it's how do we figure out, how do we come together and do that and agree, this is the way that we're going to do things and keep those things together. I mean, different mindsets, because people are complex. Like you're saying, there's a lot of layers. How do you get through those layers and really get to what's important and become cohesive as a team? Yeah,
it's, I certainly don't know all the answers yet.
Me neither.
Yeah. No one, I don't think anyone has really figured it out. But what I found is the most useful shortcut is if we can all opt in to just the belief that this is going to be hard. We are going to struggle. There are going to be times where I misunderstand you or you misunderstand me. And we're going to choose to make it important to pause and try to have that conversation, to be willing to extend to each other the kind of grace to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And say, like, I know I'm going to get some stuff wrong. I know I'm going to misunderstand some things from you. I know you're going to do some things that upset me. And we're just going to choose to talk about those instead of push them down, bury them, hide them, ignore them. Or on the other end, just go like, none of that stuff matters. We just need rational frameworks and decision making, and that's a weakness, and there's no room for weakness here. So if you can't just suck it up and get it done, then you don't deserve to be here, right? Like, those are kind of the two extremes of like how to avoid the time required to invest in, like, no, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Let's clarify that.
Yeah. One of my coaches, mentors, a guy named Michael Port, absolutely brilliant, says that business problems are most often personal problems in disguise. So how have you seen that play out in working with founders, entrepreneurs, business leaders over time?
Yeah, it's the majority of the work that I'm doing right now is finding what is hiding a layer or two down from whatever is going on.
Yeah.
And what's neat is, not always, but most of the time, whenever we get down to that layer and heal that thing that is causing this issue up here on the surface, it doesn't just change that one issue that led to it. It starts to have impact on not only that same type of issue going forward, but other things that you wouldn't even realize were related, because of those core issues, the human stuff that's in hiding. It has a lot of other impacts. And just like as an example, right? Like, one of like a founder, the presenting issue, this business layer thing is when I get these types of emails, like all these same type of email, I get like really defensive and angry, about it. And then, so I can't just like reply back and hit send. I end up having to like sit on it for a day. And then when I do write the reply, like, I have to spend like 10 minutes like rereading it and rewording it and making sure that I don't like come across as an or to like come across as super defensive, because I don't want to do that. But that's what's just coming up whenever I get it. And so we go looking at that and start to try to find, like, okay, like when you are feeling that defensiveness and that anger starting to boil up, like, where is that coming from? Like, where do you notice that? It's like, okay, I notice it over here. It's like this real tightness in my shoulder. I start to like do this thing, it's like, okay, like, so we'll focus on that, go into it, see what's there. They get in there and like, oh, it's not actually like anger. It's like I'm afraid. Like, I feel like they're going to see, like, cause I haven't, like, I feel like I can't go to the next step Like I'm being held back right now, and I'm afraid they're going to see that whenever I respond. Okay, well, like what do you mean you can't go to the next step? I just like, feel like I'm being like held back or like pushed down. That's why it's like this thing that's like holding me back or pushing down. Like, okay, well, like why are you feeling held back? And go another layer down, and we get this story of when they were 17, they left their house like the minute they could. And when they did, they left their little sister behind. And I knew what that meant for her when I left her there to get out. And I've never forgiven myself for leaving her there. But I couldn't take her with me. I couldn't stay there any longer. I had to get out, and I just haven't forgiven myself. And like and so I just like hate myself for moving on. And then it was just like, oh. So we stay there. We process kind of the forgiveness for herself of needing to do this. Come back up. And it's like, it's okay for me to move on to the next phase of this thing. I don't have to feel held back. And now that I know it's okay for me to move on to the next phase of this company, I'm not afraid of this anymore. All of these emails now suddenly feel like the easiest thing to reply to. Not because we changed like, oh, here's how you should respond in emails to not feel defensive. Right? Like we found this thing of like, I've been holding myself back, hurting for this thing. And now that that's okay, I can move on. I can do the next stuff. All of these things now feel easier and more possible.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things that hold us back that way. We don't necessarily realize it, but it presents as a business problem up here. And a lot of times it's, here's the tactic to 7 ways to fix whatever. But there's something deeper. And you get, I like that. You talk about it in layers, and you're really going deeper and deeper and deeper into it and really get down to the core issue. It's the fear, it's the anxiety, it's the rejection, the anger, all those things that you haven't dealt with, and then deal with it like, oh, that was what it was.
Yeah. And it's wild just how much easier all of a sudden things start to look.
Yeah.
It's the story, like part of the process of like starting to do the work together, I kind of present it as this opportunity that like, if we want to go faster, if we want to do more, if we want to get further, right? There's like 2 options. Right. If you want to make a car get from A to B faster, you really only have 2 options. You have to find a way to push it faster, or you have to find a way to get rid of the drag, get rid of the friction, get rid of the resistance, right? Like if that car was in space, all of a sudden, right? Like you just give it a human bump and it could get there.
Right.
Real fast. Right. And so, a lot of solutions that leaders and founders go looking for, they're looking for the miracle morning or the 8 things billionaires do before breakfast, or like, what can I add to myself? What can I bolt on? What habits can I pick up? What can help me go faster? And like, what can I do with my team to like push everyone to like go faster? And it's not that none of those things work. They do work, or industry wouldn't exist.
Sure.
But the opportunity that is most often overlooked is, what would it look like to reduce the friction, reduce the drag, reduce the resistance? What if we go release some of these things, these beliefs, these thoughts, these feelings, these habits, these reactions, right? The ones that actually interfere with the decisions, that interfere with conversations, that interfere with doing the things I need to do because the fear, the anxiety, the what if, those are holding me back. If we can release those, everything starts to go faster with zero additional effort. So now if you apply more effort on top of that, sky's the limit.
Yeah. Reducing the drag, the friction, the resistance. It just makes everything go faster. All the things you're trying to do to make it go faster, exponentially better because you've removed those obstacles in the way.
Yeah. And the powerful side effect for leaders when they're doing that kind of work is because they've experienced this, like, okay, I viscerally realize that underneath this problem, underneath this issue, there's probably something much deeper going on. Once they've experienced that, the likelihood that their reaction to someone that they've gotten onto the team, we brought on, and I'm trying to lead you, I'm trying to guide you, I'm trying to inspire you to go do more, better work so that we can build this business and grow it, right? They're more likely to react to that person with just like, hey, I've noticed that you've been like really defensive about, when we do this whatever review on the metrics for the whatever thing. And I don't want to make you feel like you have to be defensive, right? Like we're trying to get this done. So I'm just wondering, like, is there something maybe going on, maybe a layer deeper that like makes you feel like you need to defend the things that you're doing? And so it has this kind of pay it forward effect on teams where like founder, leadership, managers, individual contributors, like all start to realize like, oh, this is a place where we can share like underlying concerns, things that don't feel right. Like, oh, whenever you did that, like, I just noticed it made me like get kind of angry. I don't know why that was. Can we talk about that for a minute? Because if we do, then we come out of a short conversation going like, oh yeah, no, I don't want you to, feel angry. When I said that, that's because I think about it this way. Like, but I get why you hear that and it feels like this other thing. Cool. No, we're on the same page. Awesome. Let's let it rip.
I think a lot of times as people, and particularly as men, we're not necessarily as in touch with those emotions. We're just, I'm angry, but I don't really have that conscious thought of I'm angry and here's why. Or, really kind of going beyond, well, it's the why. It's obvious. It's because he's asking me about the same thing again. Why, doesn't it trust me? And you go through this whole thing, but, well, hold on. There's something underneath that. And well, why is that? Why do I feel that way? What is it? And you're just kind of digging through there. So, I mean, are there ways that you personally deal with that, or any strategies or mindset shifts that have helped you bounce back from challenges or situations like that?
Yeah, I think, like you just said, like a lot of times we don't even realize it, or like a lot of times we don't even think I'm angry right now, right? Like besides like why I might be angry or where that might come from or whether there's something that I could release there, right? Like most of the time we just are in that meeting and a thing happens and just, I don't even realize I'm angry. It puts a filter on. Yeah. Right. And I just start to see things through the anger without even going like, man, I kind of feel angry about that.
That's a really good thought. I mean,
so that's the first one.
It colors everything from that point forward in what we're seeing and how we react. and see if somebody else could say something.
And it's like the old thing of the fish in the ocean, right? Like, the fish doesn't know it's in water, right?
Right.
Doesn't think about it that way. And there's a story about like, the fish is going to be the last one to ever discover water. And then like I think it's like Einstein maybe that said that. And then like the footnote on it was like, and by the time that they do, they're going to be in a lot of trouble to realize that there is such a thing as not water.
Yes.
And so like one of my favorite tools is, you can find these anywhere on the internet. There's a billion copies of it. I don't have a favorite one, but it's like an emotions wheel, right? And it has like the very big ones, just like happy, sad. I don't know, maybe one or two more. And then you go out one layer and it's broken down into four pieces, which are like, oh, well, within angry, there's like frustrated, disappointed, upset. I don't know. I should have one in front of me to give the examples, right? And then you go out one more ring and like even just like upset is broken down into three things. So it starts to give me a little more vocabulary to just start to even label like, what is it that I'm feeling right now?
Yeah.
So that's the first helpful tool.
We'll make sure and link that in the second one as well, so that the people understand what that is.
Yeah, we'll find a great one.
It is super helpful just being able to identify what that is and kind of break down. We use that in marketing. How do we want people to feel? And but really getting it down very, very specific. Do we want them to be happy? Do we want them to be sad? Or even speaking? Taking them on an emotional journey. So, we want those peaks and valleys. So it's not all rah happy, but we have those moments. We don't want to leave them on a low note. So what do we want them to feel all through that process?
So that's that great tool of even being able to label them and know, like, do I intentionally want to go anywhere? The other one, I'll give you a link for this one too. But I like this thing that I call the internal stand-up. And I'm assuming, most of your folks are very familiar with what like agile team stand-up is, but it's just like, we get the team together, we all stand in a circle, we say, here's what I did yesterday, here's what I'm going to do today, and here's my blockers.
Yep.
Right? And ideally, the blockers are like specific, like, hey, guess what? You're blocking me. I need that code, Jeff, before I can do my part. And so ideally they're specific and to someone in the circle, like, I need you to do this before I can do the thing that I need to do to meet my commitments. And the internal stand-up is very similar. And it's like, now that I've started to recognize some of the types of feelings that come up, I still, I'm just kind of with myself, and I just think about, what are my commitments for today? Like, I need to send that newsletter later. I need to follow up with two of my clients with some notes on things that they asked me about. And instead of the external team, and what are they going to do, and what are our blockers, I start to just notice kind of the other parts of me that are showing up. Like when I think about, I got to get that newsletter out, and I'm like, well, there's a part of me that feels like those are a waste of time because they aren't really working yet, but I know I'm supposed to be consistent. And it's like, afraid that everything I'm saying is stupid anyway, and who even cares? Like, whoa, okay. There's a part of me that feels that way about all this stuff. And it's like, okay, what are the blockers on that? It needs me to just go read that article again about why consistency is king. And just help me feel that a little bit more. And also, like, just sit with that a second of like, do I really think that everyone thinks it's stupid? Or like, why am I afraid that like everyone would think it's stupid? And just give myself kind of the gift of time, like we were talking about earlier, for the whole team. Or like, will I even give myself the gift of like, hearing that part out and not immediately going like, well, that's wrong. You're wrong. It's not that way.
Right.
Right. Like, well, can I hear myself though for a minute? I'm just like, I'm afraid no one cares. Like, oh, well, that sucks. That sucks to feel that way. I'm really sorry. Let's just talk about that for a second. And like, what if no one cares? Is it still worth doing this? Well, yeah, because this is important to me. Okay. And like, do you have any proof that no one cares? Because like people have been replying back and saying thank you and stuff. So like some people care. Yeah, you're right. It's just like, I'm afraid because a million people haven't signed up that means that no one cares. Like, okay, we're going to have a million yet? No. Okay, I can go do this today. And so like that took, I don't know, 2 minutes.
Right.
At most. Right. But that 2 minutes that I gave myself at the beginning of the day doing that internal, like, what are the feelings that are coming up? What do they mean? What do they need to like kind of chill out and like support the rest of the day instead of slowing everything down the rest of the day, can really help. And again, when I build that habit for myself, when I give myself that kind of space and grace to just be heard and to kind of process all of it, the amazing, wonderful side effect is that means I'm that much more likely to extend that to my team, my partners, my customers, anything that comes up during the day. I'm way more likely to extend that same thing to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what do you think the most underrated skill or quality that founders or leaders have or should possess? And, why is that essential? What is it that's underrated that is essential?
Give a shitness. the quality of can I say that? Give a shitness. This has got to be a really long German word for that.
Caring.
It is, and it's like, and I think why like maybe I push it to a silly crass word is like, because what does it mean to care? Like to apply the action of caring, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because my first reaction, like I wanted to say like listening, because that's really my real answer is like actually listening. But what I mean by actually listening is caring. And what it means to care is to like actually bring it in, right? Like to allow what I'm hearing, whether it's from my customers, whether it's from the market, whether it's from an employee, like whatever it is, but someone else is trying to communicate something to me that's going to help me make a decision or have a conversation or go do the next thing or build a strategy, whatever it is. And I have to let it in, which means I have to let it in before I've decided whether they are right or wrong, or whether it matters, or whether we have time for that, or whether it fits, or whether I think it's smart, or whether I think it's dumb, or right. Like I can't do any of the judging before I let it in. Right. And so like I remember there's one of the best management tips I ever heard related to feedback was when people give me feedback, I don't get to ask the question, are they right or are they wrong? I have to ask, how might they be right? Right. So I go like, Jeff, I don't think like you care about our benefits program. Right. And I'm not you, but if I were you, one of my first reactions would be like, you're wrong. I care a lot about it.
Right.
And then take their feedback and just throw it out because they're wrong. I do care about the benefits around here.
It's like, can't you see what we do? We've done all this stuff. And that's the place.
Right. And I can
place to go.
Toss it away. Yeah. Right. If I change the question to like, like if I let it in, if I let what they're saying in first, right? And like, okay, you feel like I don't care about our benefits around here. How might that be correct?
Yeah, how might that
Right?
perception have been come across? Yeah, how have I
Mhm.
demonstrated that I don't?
Mhm.
How'd you come to that conclusion?
Or like, how are you, like, maybe I care a ton and like we have all of this stuff. And it's like, how do you not know that this is a thing or that we care? Or like, or like, what do you mean by benefits? Right? Because our healthcare is this and our time off is this and whatever. It's like, yeah, but we don't do any professional development.
Now we've just gone deeper.
Oh, right. So I think that's the real trick is how do I let things all the way in to then start to take the next step of like, well, do I understand correctly? What do you mean whenever you say blah, blah, blah? Because maybe we have different definitions of the same thing. What would it look like for this to be demonstrated in a way that you experience? Do you have ideas of what it would look like to meet the expectations that you have? What can I learn about you and your experience and what you care about based on kind of the way you present things every time? You know, what unspoken things, you know, can I learn by taking it in and actually taking note of that, you know, and just be like, wow, towards the end of the, or like when all the kids are getting out of school, all of a sudden these types of concerns start showing up and no one's saying like, kids are going to be out of school for 3 months and now I'm freaked out about my Q3 priorities. And that wasn't what they said, but they're saying all this other stuff and like, wait, what's going on right now? Oh, it's the parents that all have this thing coming up. Oh, well, like what's going on with all the parents? Oh, this thing is happening. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, what can, you know, silly example, but it's like, that's what happens when you actually let it in first and then start to process it instead of deciding before you even let it in.
Well, it validates the emotion that that is a real feeling, right or wrong, you know, is that reality, but it validates the emotion. And then we're kind of starting the conversation of, you know, where is that coming from? What is it that's making you feel that way? And really getting to that core issue. Oh, it's professional development. Oh, well, now we're talking about, that's a completely different conversation than, oh, you don't care about benefits. This sucks. Okay. Yeah. It could go sideways really quickly without that additional, you know, conversation and really kind of digging in and understanding, you know, what's behind that, the question behind the question.
And the reality is what you earn in the increased trust. They're like, hey, I can give feedback and it will be heard, has much longer impact and implications than even whatever the individual thing was that like maybe resolved, maybe we can't. But by doing it that way, the trust impacts everything, not even just this one interaction that you had. So you get exponential growth and impact by taking the time to do the thing.
That's really smart because you can really shut somebody down very quickly in the reaction. And like, well, I'm not speaking up about anything else again because I know where that's going to lead. It's nowhere. So it's you know.
And right now, companies are full of shutdown people.
Yeah. And then you learn, you know, this is a place where you don't speak up, you don't contribute, you don't have ideas, and then they move on.
If you're lucky.
Worse, they stay in that bad culture.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
You just have a whole bunch of checked out people just punching the clock, not caring, doing the thing.
Quiet quitting. Well, where can people learn more about you online?
I have my company, my site is called yoursecondcall.com. And, pretty much anything is there. And I'll add the link directly to the kind of the internal stand-up in case that's a tool people want to try for themselves. It'll have kind of the description of how they can try that out, because anyone can do that anytime.
Great. We'll make sure and link that in the show notes as well. Well, Thomas,
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for being on SaaS Fuel.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff.
Thanks again, Thomas, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. You can learn more about Thomas at yoursecondcall.com. All links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. Subscribe and follow us. Everyone who subscribes this week, I usually have something funny here, some crazy thing that you get. But this week, I'll say is going to be a little bit different. Every new subscriber this week, we'll add an extra $10 on top of our donation for the Israel Emergency Fund. So help us help Israel. If you're not a subscriber yet, do that this week, and we'll total those up at the end of the week, and we'll just add that on top of what we're doing. So an extra $10 for every new subscriber. So who knows? Maybe you get 10 million subscribers, we're in trouble. So, but subscribe, tell your friends, sign up, do something good, and make it count extra for this week. And for every subscriber we already have, we'll just go ahead and do that for all of those, and plus all the new ones as well. Well, join us Thursday on our SaaS Fuel Expert Series, where my guest is Vlad Hu. He is a consultant and fractional CTO who helps SaaS startups craft their MVPs so that they get traction and grow. And the next Tuesday, we have founder Yaroslav Lazor, CEO and founder of a product studio called Railsware. He's led the development of hundreds of SaaS products and now a few of his own. We'll talk about winners, losers, and building future-proof applications in a fast-moving world. So I will see you next time. Keep Israel in your prayers, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.